I don't mean that to be judgmental either. So just try to look friendly, like you want guests.
It's always good for attendees to hear the sound of laughter as they come into the room.
Yes. Well, I'm going to put up the banner now.
I love the clock. That was great.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
I'll go ahead and put the names and contact information in the chat as we go through and each person speaks. That way people can just click on it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I cannot see how many attendees there are in this position.
I can. We're up to 24.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started in a few moments. We're just going to allow people to get on the call, and so just give us a few moments, and then we'll set up to go live, and we'll begin the event. Okay, I think we're at a great place to begin. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our event today, The Power of the American Voter in and for Africa. I'm Angela Fobbs, the chair of the Global Black Caucus of Democrats Abroad. I live in Germany and I vote in Florida, and I've briefly lived in Eritrea in the late 90s. It would be great if everyone would let us know where you're living and where you vote by writing it in the chat, just so we know who's out there. Before we get started, we have a few notes. If you have questions about voting or need help requesting a ballot for the November election, our voter support team is here to help you. If you type **help in the chat box, they will contact you personally via chat during this session. They'll also be online after the main event to ask questions. It's really important that everyone vote this year, and we're here to help you. We also want to remind you to be sure that all of your fellow Americans living outside of the US go to votefromabroad.org and request an absentee ballot. So maybe text a couple of your friends that are American that are living outside of the United States and ask them if they're ready to vote in November. At any time during the event, if you have any questions for our speakers, please add your questions to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. My co-moderator for today is John Strimlau. John is honorary professor of international relations at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, joining Wit's faculty as a professor and HOD in 1998. He is the former vice president of peace programs at the Carter Center, deputy director for policy planning in the office of the U.S. Secretary of State from 1989 to 1994, and an officer of the Rockefeller Foundation from 1974 to 1987, directing its International Relations Division. He authored The International Politics of the Nigerian War and has edited several books. Welcome, John. Also on the panel are 5 of our volunteers that are helping to get out the vote in the African countries where they live. Representing Democrats Abroad in Egypt is Kimberly Roberts. Kimberly, would you like to say a couple of words?
We're so glad to have you here. And I'm an expat from Indiana and living and calling Egypt my forever home for the past 2 years.
Thank you, Kimberly. Next, we have representing Democrats Abroad in Kenya, Robin Emerson. Would you like to say a few words, Robin?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. I live in Kenya. I've been here for now 15 years. I did also live in West Africa and Senegal, and I'm from Texas, and I'm so happy that Texas is in play. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Robin. Representing Democrats Abroad in Morocco is
Elizabeth Myers.
Elizabeth Myers.
Thanks, Angela. Very happy to be here. There's a lot to do tonight. I'm going to be brief. I'm a lawyer and a journalist. I was based in Washington, D.C. until December and moved here to Morocco, Marrakesh, just before we went into lockdown in March. And glad to be here with you and my members of my 8 to 10 member country committee here in Morocco.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We have next, representing Democrats Abroad in Rwanda, Marissa Grimes. Did Marissa join? Yes, you did. Okay, I'm sorry. Marissa is also a Biden delegate for Democrats Abroad at the 2020 Democratic National Convention.
Hi, everyone. I'm calling in from Kigali. Really glad to see so many folks on the call. I work here in an agriculture nonprofit. Been here about a year, and yeah, really excited to be organizing with DA.
Thank you, Marissa. Representing Democrats Abroad in South Africa, we have Tracy Whitfield and Liz O'Leary. Tracy, would you like to make a statement?
Hi, I'm Tracy from Democrats Abroad in South Africa. I'm a 19-year resident of Johannesburg. I'm another Hoosier, like a Robin. And listen, just happy to have everyone here for this timely conversation. Enjoy.
Thank you. Liz?
Hi, thanks. This is Liz in Joburg, South Africa. I've been here for 25 years and vote in Connecticut. Please vote, because lives do depend on it. I think we all see the beauty and the value of the world beyond ourselves. We know the possibilities. We know what we're fighting for and what we're voting for. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Also with us is the Regional Vice Chair for the Europe, the Middle East, and Africa region of Democrats Abroad, Will Bacher in Luxembourg.
Hi, I vote just around the corner of the Great Lakes from the Hoosiers in Lake County, Illinois. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I really appreciate all the energy that our leaders in Africa have brought to this event and are bringing to get out the vote for these November's elections. And I'm especially grateful to the many distinguished guests who are giving their time for us to share their experiences. So I can't wait to get started.
Yeah. Thank you, Will. And we also have Democrats Abroad Democratic National Committee member Adrian George in Sweden.
Hey, Sam from Sweden. I vote from the west coast of Sweden in Washington, D.C., D.C. statehood. And when Angela told me that she and Will were putting this together, I just had to be a part of it. So I'm so proud to be here tonight. Thanks for letting me participate.
Thanks, Adrian. Before I introduce our special guest, I'm going to be launching a poll for the audience, and it would be great if everybody would just answer. It's a simple question. I'm launching the poll now. It should be up on your screen. And I will continue on with my introductions. So now I'd like to introduce our special guest for this evening. Our first guest is Ambassador Blaney. Former Ambassador, U.S. Ambassador John Blaney served in Liberia from 2002 to 2005, where he conducted successful negotiations on the battlefield itself to end the conflict. For his accomplishments in Liberia, Ambassador Blaney was awarded the United States' highest diplomatic honor, the Secretary of State's Distinguished Service Award. Before that, Ambassador Blaney served as the U.S. Deputy Chief of Mission and Chargé d'Affaires in South Africa and the Department of State's Director for South Africa. In addition to authoring his own works, Ambassador Blaney's work in Liberia is the subject of an award-winning book called The Embassy, A Story of War and Diplomacy. Ambassador Blaney is a member of Ambassadors for Biden and is working with Democrats Abroad to help mobilize the vote abroad this year. Thank you for joining this evening, Ambassador.
Well, thank you for having me, and hello, everybody. I am very pleased to be here, and should I go ahead and give my little first 1 minute pitch?
Yes, please go ahead.
Why am I here? Well, as a matter of fact, I'm a fellow who has never been politically active for his entire life, and I chose this moment to do so because I think that this is the most important election of my entire lifetime. And if you knew how old I was, you'd be scared. Probably yours too, as a matter of fact. Because what's at stake from my perspective is the irreplaceable leadership of the United States in the historic creation and promotion of a kind of liberal world order since the time of the American Revolution and the rejection of the rule of kings, but more recently since World War II and all the institutions that were created with the leadership of the United States, such as the Bretton Woods institutions and the United Nations. The U.S. role is fundamental in creating these institutions, these economic interactions, in creating freer societies and peoples, and in promoting human rights. Now, the results have been really unprecedented, with tremendous wealth creation, many freer societies, stronger human rights, and although, as we've just found out, there's a lot of problems in the United States, and it's imperfect, there has nevertheless been progress and the will to address problems in the future. Until now. And I say that because this administration, from my perspective, has rejected the leadership role the United States has had in advancing humanity. It really has taken a kind of an isolationist approach toward the world, an America first implication of, and that's it, damaging both global and regional institutions and political ones as well. Even walking away from the World Health Organization in the midst of a pandemic. It also supports autocrats. And that is not part of our tradition either and part of our leadership role. So this, from my perspective, is a very dangerous path to keep pursuing. So we should not. And that's why I became politically active. And that's why I implore you to vote for Joe Biden. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Blaney. Our next special guest is Ambassador Dwight Bush. Former U.S. Ambassador Dwight Bush served as the American ambassador to the Kingdom of Morocco from 2014 to 2017. He is highly accomplished executive with experience in banking and finance, corporate management, diplomacy, and corporate and nonprofit governance. Ambassador Bush is the Chief Executive Officer of DL Bush and Associates, a Washington, D.C.-based strategy and business advisory firm. Ambassador Bush is currently a member of the boards of director of Goldman Sachs Trust and Goldman Sachs Variable Insurance Trust, the Middle East Investment Initiative, the National U.S. Arab Chamber of Commerce, and the American Council of Young Political Leaders. Thank you for joining this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you find yourselves today. I'm very honored to be with you all at this time. I need to give a particularly loud shout out to the people on the call from Morocco and the Maghreb. I worked closely with many of you when I served as ambassador, and I can tell you that you left a profound impact on me. As I thought about today's event, I reflected on the priorities of the Obama administration when I worked there. First and foremost, respect for the dignities, cultures, and religions of all peoples. Secondly, a commitment to the advancement of civil society, women's empowerment, entrepreneurship, and always mindful of the climate and the environment and the impact that we could have on them. And a recognition that the United States plays a unique role in the world through our words and deeds as a beacon for the possible. 3 years later, each of these principles have been undermined by the Trump administration. African countries and their people are described using derogatory words. The US has essentially abandoned our historical commitment to the advancement of civil society, human rights, and women's empowerment. And we look away as strong men around the world brutalize their own citizens and undermine human rights. We have abdicated our commitment to influence growth on the fastest growing continent on the planet, and we've left it to the Chinese. And we severely cut back on the use of our development tools, like USAID, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, MEPI, OPIC, and many others. And sadly, the road back is going to be long. All of us on this call have experienced what we can achieve on the continent when we're committed, focused, and speaking of one voice. And this is why we need everybody on this call, everyone connected to everybody on this call, and every person available who can vote to get out and vote, vote, vote. You know, 5 million fewer Democrats voted in 2016 than 2012. And we lost the election by a couple of 100,000 votes. So once again, go out and vote. Vice President Biden, Kamala Harris, and all Democrats down the ticket need to be with you, supported by you, as we try to reverse the Trump destruction of the last years. I really hope and sincerely expect that we can count on you all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next special guest is Ambassador Elkanah Odembo. Elkanah Odembo was ambassador to the Republic of Kenya to the United States from 2006 to 2010, and previously served as Kenya's ambassador to France. Ambassador Odembo has led a wide range of community development projects based in Africa, including the founding director of Ufadhili Trust, Center for Philanthropy and Social Responsibility, a Kenyan institution, consultant to the Ford Foundation's coordinator of African Philanthropy Initiative, and the Director of CARE International in Ghana. Ambassador Odembo has a master's degree in community health, specifically epidemiology, from the University of Texas. So we're particularly happy to have his perspective today. Thank you for joining this evening. Ambassador, you're on.
Thank you very much, Angela. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for having me, and a very good evening to everybody. I'd like to have this opportunity to share some thoughts with everybody who's joining us today. So, the way of opening, let me say 3 points that I'd like to make. One, that the President of the United States, by and large, sets a tone for all U.S. foreign policy. And that includes the policy towards Africa. And that's why it's really important. The Americans appreciate that in fact, the U.S. President has more latitude in foreign policy than he does with domestic policy. So having the right person in the White House, the person with the right worldview, attitude, mindset, perspective, is not just critical for the US, it's critical for Africa and for the rest of the world as well. The second thing I'd like to say is that Africa is transforming, has been transforming at a fairly rapid pace over the last 20 years, socially, economically, and politically as well. And as well, the rest of the world is responding to Africa, engaging with Africa in ways that it hasn't done before. And we've seen much more engagement by the rest of the world with Africa than have with the United States, particularly in the last 4 years. And it's important for American voters to appreciate the fact that Africa matters to the rest of the world. And therefore, the US ought to make sure that it takes its position in the agenda and be a part of a global agenda that looks at Africa as the last frontier and an important place in terms of where the world is going, natural resources that are there, demographic situation on the continent, youth population, the urbanization, and so forth. And thirdly, I would like to say that multilateralism matters. And if anybody doubted that this pandemic that we are all living through right now should have taught us the importance of the interconnectedness of the world. And it's really fortunate the United States, of all people, is one country that has isolated itself and seems to be completely different. The fact that the world is connected in so many specialties, and the reason why it's important that the person who sits in the White House appreciates the fact that multilateralism is important for the world's development. Really, really critical that Americans appreciate this and that you pay attention to who you put in the White House. So thank you very much. So those will be my few remarks.
Thank you, Ambassador. Our next special guest is Ambassador Susan Page. Ambassador Page was the first U.S. ambassador to the newly independent Republic of South Sudan from 2011 to 2014, and since has been in the chargé d'affaires to the U.S. mission to the African Union, acting permanent representative to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and professor of practice in international diplomacy. Ambassador Page's experience in Africa is too long to list, but includes key roles in Kenya, Botswana, Rwanda, and Sudan. She received the Susan M. Cobb Award for Exemplary Diplomatic Service, the Commendation for Outstanding Service to the Sudan Peace Process, and the Meritorious Honor Award for Outstanding Efforts in the Promotion of the Rule of Law, Human Rights, and Peace in the Great Lakes region of Africa. She is currently a professor of international diplomacy at the Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan, and professor from the practice of University of Michigan Law School. She is also a member of the American Academy of Diplomacy, a member of the Association of Black American Ambassadors, and a member of the Board of Rhodes Scholars. She is also an AKA, just like Kamala Harris. Welcome, welcome, so welcome very much, Ambassador Page.
Thank you very much, Angela. And it's really nice to see some of my former colleagues and to greet everyone. Like many of us would do when we are in foreign countries, we would try to say a few words in the local language, but there are too many here and we're all Americans. But let me just say that I will echo, I won't take up a lot of time with comments, but just simply to say that I believe it is critically important to vote and that people know their rights to vote. As a Black woman living in the United States and having lived in lots of foreign countries my whole professional career, I just think of my ancestors and people like John Lewis who paved the way, literally sacrificing their lives, and I just don't understand why we don't think about their sacrifice, the fact that so many of them, despite their sacrifices, still did not get allowed to vote, and that we take it so lightly and carelessly. I also believe, like Ambassador Blaney and those who've spoken before me, that it is essential. What we have seen in the last 3.5 years, almost 4 years, is a complete destruction of our reputation abroad. All of the things that we normally hold dear in foreign policy, in diplomacy, around the world has been forgotten and shelved. We've pulled out of so many agreements that there are too many to even name. And these were things that were often done on a bipartisan basis. But we have seen that the Republicans have gone along with all of the things that President Trump has done, including the fact that tonight he is going to make his speech from the Oval Office, and that Mike Pompeo made his speech on an official trip, which has real questions about the Hatch Act. So I just think it's incredibly important that we get out there, that we vote. I know that some people are probably disappointed that maybe they think that this is not the best candidate, but the fact is we have more and more a system of only 2 parties. And that means that if you don't vote for Biden, Trump will be reelected. And I think that the damage to our country really will be so long-standing that we really cannot afford to take that risk. So I'll repeat what everyone else has said. Please, please vote. If you have not yet requested your ballot, as was put out in the poll that Angela made, do so. People have put their addresses in if you need more information. They're in the chat box. So please, please, please vote Biden-Harris. Thank you.
Yes, 100%. Please vote Biden-Harris. If you need help or you have questions about voting, our voter support staff is here. Just type in the chat *help, and then they'll approach you for help. So don't be afraid. We are nice, friendly people, and we'll love to help you. One last introduction is Mamadou Samba. Mamadou Samba served as the Chief of Staff for the Office of Labor Relations and Collective Bargaining, appointed by Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Prior to that, Mamadou served as Executive Director to the Mayor's Office of African Affairs between 2015 and 2019. As the Director of the Mayor's Office of African Affairs, Mr. Samba led significant achievements directly impacting the Africa community and tied to the mayor's key policy priorities. In 2016, Mamadou was named one of the 20 young African influencers in the diaspora by Shop Black magazine and is the recipient of the congressional recognition from Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton of District Washington, D.C. Mr. Samba received the 2017 Nelson Mandela Award for Social Justice from the UNESCO Center for Peace and the Visionary Leadership Award from the African Studies Association. Mr. Samba is originally from Senegal and is fluent in French and Wolof. Yeah. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very honored. Let me first of all say that, as you may notice, I'm the only non-ambassador joining all of these honorary great ambassadors. It is a great honor. I'm just hoping that the title of ambassador might rub on me somehow, just being part of your group. But I'm very excited. I don't want to repeat what has already been said. I will only add that, the unfortunate killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many, African American the past few years has only shown recently how divided the nation really is. And who we vote for and who we do not vote for, in this case, Hillary Clinton and other Democrats, really impact, our lives in so many different ways. So this is the reason why I decided to be more involved, because, I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm a witness to what's going on every single day. And it's just unfortunate that we now live in a country where there's a lot more fear than ever before. There's a lot more division between Black and white, rich and poor. And it is important that we take a stand, go out and vote, talk to our neighbors about voting, not only for Joe Biden and Harris, but also for other Democrats, governors, mayors, local officials, because those are the people that will eventually support Joe Biden's policy priorities at a very top level. So I'm honored to be here again. Thank you for inviting me. And I'd like to thank Elizabeth Myers for including me as part of this group. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us. I'd like to just say once again, if you have a question, please enter it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get around to it after this first session. We'll start answering questions from our guest. With that, I'm going to turn this section of the program over to you, John Strimla. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
That's fine now, Angela. Thank you very, very much. And greetings, everyone. I am in the awkward position of following such inspiring introductions that I have to begin by saying, yes, we all must vote. My last residence was in Atlanta, Georgia, John Lewis's district. And we are going to vote in Georgia, although I grew up in Connecticut. But I am now a binational with a South African affinity for the South African Constitution. And at the Democratic Convention, it was so inspiring to see former President Obama and Mrs. Obama and candidates Biden and Harris make very plain that the Democratic Party stands for democracy. The strong man would be Trump may want nativism and nationalism and appeal to what remains of white supremacy in the United States, but that's not what the Democratic Party is about. So with that as a background, it would really be interesting for me, and I hope for others, to hear a few recollections about what working for democracy in Africa has meant. Can be a controversial subject, I know, but I was very impressed when Senator Coons and Congressman Karen Bass and Ambassador Susan Rice spoke to us for Democrats abroad. And they kept reiterating, as several of you have, that democracy and human rights is very much a part of America's role in the world. But this, following the Trump years, puts a great responsibility on us and really at the grassroots. And I have been inspired over many years by the professional diplomats, several of whom are represented in this group, and how they have related to local forces in Africa for democracy. And by the way, the African Union's Constitutive Act and the African Charter on democracy, elections and governance all require regular voting by all member states, however deficient. This is a continent so diverse, it can only do business democratically, and I think is instinctively democratic. So would you mind reflecting a little bit about your role at the cutting edge of conflict and transitions, or that like Ambassador Blaney, or working toward human rights as an analytic tool to prevent refugee flows? Give us a sense of what the practical and the aspirational come together, and how those of us who are not in the foreign service or professional civil servants could relate and support and cooperate with that kind of initiative. That's a big open question, which I'd welcome anyone chiming in on. Anyone?
Yeah.
I see Susan Page right up. She's an old friend, but is somebody else?
Go ahead, please.
Sure. If you want me to start, I will. Let me just say that I think that the work that we have done as professional diplomats, whether civil service or foreign service, has been to really try to strengthen civil society, to work on human rights bills, to strengthen them, to work on constitutions, to really try to encourage inclusivity. And we're not seeing so much of that right now, which is one of the reasons why I believe it is so important. We see Alexei Navalny right now clinging to life in a coma after having been allegedly poisoned. Okay, that's not Africa, that's Russia, but again, it's another strongman state. We have several people in countries that, by and large, are run by single sort of dictators or authoritarian regimes. We're not seeing very many comments about that from our embassies. But I would say that our embassies are still on the front line, because these are still the expectations of the people in these societies. They do look to the US to try to continue to uphold that. And we've seen that, as Mamadou said, that we are seeing people around the world protesting not just the killings in the United States of Black men and women, but also injustice and inequality in their own countries. So we have a role to play, and we need to continue to be engaged. We need to learn more about our own history, not take an approach that is we are right, but rather to try to understand their own society as well, and try to encourage them from the lessons that we've learned also.
Thanks, Susan. John, did you have something to say?
Yes, let me just borrow from Ambassador Page, if I may, one word that I think applies also to problem solving, complex problem solving. As you all know, Africa can be a dangerous place. The world can be a dangerous place. And one of the ways that you solve dangerous, complex problems is inclusivity. And one of the keys to our success in Liberia was that we didn't try to do the whole thing ourselves, the United States. I don't think we could have, and I ought to know. we reached out for everybody to become involved. And I don't just mean other governments or even sub-regional organizations of Africa like ECOWAS, who played a critical role in that success, but also to non-governmental actors, to people, to groups. We went back home. We talked to the media a lot. We did tremendous outreach to try to bring the world focus on people suffering, the need to stop a terrible war. It was successful, but it was in part only successful because of this inclusiveness, this web of peace, if you want to call it that we created. Fast forward to today. You see any of that going on? I don't. I see just the opposite. I see a kind of xenophobia in the United States. I see the cult of the personality, to borrow from the Russian terminology. I don't see the type of reaching out to allies, to friends, and even talking to people who you don't find much common ground with, to try to problem solve and keep and move forward on complex situations so they don't get worse. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Ambassador Blaney, and I might say in passing that the Mono River region was fraught with conflicts at the time that you were in Liberia and afterwards. And in each case, the ambassadors from the United States played leading roles in brokering for transitional governance that I think was really important. Ambassador Bush, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Yes, just to make a comment. Look, I am not a career diplomat. I was a political appointee. And one of the first thing I realized when I got to the post was the power of the American platform to move agendas in the country. If we saw situations in which we felt that Morocco could benefit, for example, from improving its judicial infrastructure, we had American lawyers and American judges come over to help train people so that they could improve themselves. If we felt that there was an opportunity to raise up women in civil society, we would program around it. And I would make sure that certain women knew that if they wanted me to attend an event, that I would be there for them. And some of these were people at a very low level, because I saw the power of the platform as an opportunity to bring American values and take advantage of it to accelerate change in the country. Whether it's those things or an entrepreneurship or taking advantage of programs like MEPI and others, to make sure that the platform of the United States is recognized for its capacity and the things that it can do. And one of the things that I find most frustrating today, quite frankly, is that much of that platform has been so weakened by this administration. And I'm hopeful that when President Biden is there, this will be a priority to restore the importance of those platforms.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to add to this, or can I shift slightly to another subject of widespread interest? And that is what's going to come up in this campaign, and that we have to give some hard thought to, is the role of China. And China in Africa seems to me to be a very constructive player in a lot of ways that we've seen at the embassy levels within countries, in Liberia, for example. But I see Ambassador Page here, and as I recall, Ambassador Lyman and Ambassador Shao in Southern Sudan and peacemaking were trying to cooperate. And it seems to me that at a time when tensions are rising with China, that perhaps in Africa, we can have a win-win-win involving Africans and Chinese and Americans that can be good for Africa, but at the same time also be a confidence building measure between China and the United States. Am I crazy about that, Susan?
Well, no, I don't think you're crazy. Unfortunately, I do think that we have entered a realm of, or maybe re-entered a realm of the big power competition. And, you know, right now it's US-China. And China does something that we sort of started quite belatedly, which is really trying to hone in on long-term relationships. They do party exchanges. They have their Confucius centers. We do, of course, we have our IVLP programs. And one of the things that I think has been the most promising has been the YALI, the Young African Leaders Initiative, created under President Obama, which is fantastic because this is a way to help groom the next generation or future generations that we hope to see in leadership positions across Africa. But I think that where we are, we have some opportunities is in actual conversation and not the way that everything has been, it's pitted against people instead of looking where there are similarities, where there can be correlation, where we can actually work together. And when you take Sudan and South Sudan, which have oil fields that are largely operated by the Chinese or Asian consortiums, it was one area that we worked together on both during the peace negotiations for Sudan and after the independence of South Sudan from Sudan. But we have allowed really the Chinese to compete by themselves in this sphere because we're not really encouraging our businesses to go in. And on top of it, you know, a lot of American businesses don't want to be involved in Sudan and South Sudan. They're fine with Nigeria and its corruption and its issues and danger, but somehow South Sudan and Sudan seem to be too much of a bridge to cross. I think that we could do more in that sphere, but again, it has to be, you know, as Ambassador Blaney said, conversations with the Chinese leadership. And when I was ambassador in South Sudan, the Chinese oil company magnate was actually higher rank in the Communist Party than the ambassador. So these are things you have to know. You have to know who you can talk to and who to go to. So I think that there is a possibility, and I hope that that is something that will be addressed by a Biden-Harris administration. Thank you.
Very much, Ambassador Page, and I think that's a good bet, a safe bet. And one of the areas in which that would allow me to segue, because we only have about 10 more minutes for this segment of the program, into a recollection that it was my favorite president, Barack Obama, who cut a deal with Xi Jinping for the Green Climate Fund, which is so important for Africa. And it seemed to me that perhaps you might want to say a few words to anyone in this group on climate change and the possibilities of rekindling some of that. I understand that the U.S.-China relationship has deteriorated greatly since Trump was in power, and there are real issues between us. But there are also areas where we can cooperate, and climate change is one of them. But climate change is so complicated and so impactful on Africa that resuscitating the Green Climate Fund and America's participation in it would seem to me to be extremely important. Does any one of you have had any experience in climate change that you might want to make relevant for Africa right now? Because I know that there's a great interest down here in South Africa on this subject. My goodness.
Okay, I will go if nobody else wants to say anything. I have had some interaction with it, particularly when I was in Ethiopia as chargé d'affaires to the U.S. mission to the African Union. I do think that it's going to be very difficult to get us back in to the green global climate change. But one thing that we could do would be to quickly re-enter the Paris Accords. I mean, they are voluntary, and we have largely, I think individual states have tried to continue their promises. That's a positive sign, but we need to do more because that is at the US state level, and we need to continue that on the Africa level because the effects of climate change are most felt by people living in Africa. So, you know, I saw my friends who worked at the South Korean-led climate change initiative, and they lost their jobs because the funding was pulled. So we have to get back in the game. And I know that this is a question that's in the chat that will be moved over, but I'll just quickly say that I think that's one of the things that with the executive orders and extractive industries that we can play more of a role. The last thing I would say on that is that, John, you mentioned some of the African Union's roles. Under the African Union, of course, is the East African community and the East African Parliament, the Legislative Assembly there. And that's a great place to start because they actually have a chapter in their own charter on extractive industries and minerals and whatnot. So those are areas that I think, at least on the diplomatic level, we could be engaging, at least in East Africa, and with Transparency International and others that are working on extractive industries like the Kimberley process. Out.
Thank you very much. And Mamadou, Samba, you know, you had your hand up, and cities really are important in this. So I would love to have you say a few words.
No, definitely. I just wanted to add to what Ambassador Page just mentioned about cooperation between the US and Africa. Also, let's now remember that it was President Obama who convened the very first presidential summit with the African presidents in the US in DC in 2000, I believe 2011 or 12, and which really created the opportunity to have African presidents engage with the US on several fronts, including democracy, security, and also the renewal of the AGOA, which allowed many of the African countries to start to engage in more trade and exchange with the US government. And I think those are important initiatives to remind the participants. And I, you know, being here in DC and, you know, being very involved with the African continent, there's a growing sense that, you know, if, you know, President Trump gets reelected, many of those initiatives would eventually fade away. And the African countries, the African presidents, the African continent overall would not really have the opportunity to get involved in the international level as they did during the President Obama's presidency. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well.
Thank you very much. I think we should ban from our discourse if President Trump gets reelected, because I think at this stage, it's best to
definitely
take the attitude. Angela, I see you back on, and we're very close to 7:55, which is, I take it, is my cutoff point. And I just wanted to ask if there were any other members of this distinguished group who wanted to say a final parting word before I turn it back over to you. Anyone else? If not, Angela, can I pass it back to you?
Yes, you can. I just wanted to share the results of our poll, which are pretty positive. Most of the people on this call have requested their ballot. There are a few people who have not, and there are a few people that need help. So if you need help, just type * help in the chat, and one of our voter support people will help you. If you have not registered your ballot, requested your ballot, you can go to votefromabroad.org. If someone could just if you could drop that in the chat, that would be awesome. And now I'd like to ask Adrian George if you'd like to tell us about the DNC and what's going on and how it relates to our topic.
Thank you, Angela. And thanks again for letting me be a part of this discussion. As I said before, when I heard that you and Will were going to meet with our leaders in Africa, I just wanted to be a part of it. And to Robin and Mamadou, I just want to quickly say Nangadef. And to Mamadou, also DC statehood. Democrats abroad. I'm a DNC, I'm a member of the Democratic National Committee, thanks to the votes of my fellow colleagues in Democrats abroad. And what that means is that I get to, along with 7 of my colleagues, represent Americans abroad at the Democratic National Committee. We're the only people in the room who talk about issues that are unique to us Americans living abroad. Democrats Abroad is the only state party whose members vote in every state for Democrats up and down the ballot. We're the only people who elect Democratic municipal officers across the United States. And Democrats Abroad, our main mission is get out the vote, GOTV. We work on helping people not only request their ballots, but also make sure that they can get their ballots in on time and protect them from voter suppression tactics. For example, right now we know that mail service is complicated from a lot of countries. So we're recommending that people use the Federal Emergency Write-In Ballot, the FWAB. And as Angela has said before, if you've got a question about how you're going to get your ballot back, if your state is one of those that require you to mail it in, type ** hand up or ** voter help in the chat box, and one of our specialists will get with you. Our teams, we have several committees, several teams that make sure that ballots are quickly sent through that we're working to make sure that we can figure out how you're going to get your ballots back to the state. So we're working with courier services. We're working with embassies, with their voter services. We're encouraging states to allow email ballots returns. I'm lucky I vote in DC, and not only everyone can receive their ballot by email, but I can return my ballot by email. We're also working with the United States Postal Service to protect our ballots as they come in, and to their international service centers and to the US mail stream. Now through, as being a member of the Democratic National Committee, I'm one of 7 of us who represent Democrats Abroad who participate in DNC caucuses and councils. When I say DNC, I want to make sure everybody knows that that's an abbreviation for Democratic National Committee. So the DNC has several caucuses and councils, and we spread out to make sure that we go to as many meetings as possible. And when we're in those meetings, we always get a chance to stand up and to amplify our voices and the issues that impact overseas Americans. For example, transmission of citizenship for LGBT couples. Our veterans that live abroad didn't have access to the Department of Defense suicide hotlines. A lot of our young members were born overseas. Not every state allows them to vote in federal elections or their state elections, and they still have the requirement to register for selective service. And that I've had stories from, for example, I'm here in Sweden, from a mother whose son was only 17 and he wanted to give up his American citizenship. That's just heartbreaking, because he couldn't vote in his state of Maryland, but he still had to register for selective service. We talk about issues like that. We bring up in the Seniors Council that, we're retired overseas. We want to make sure that we get our Social Security. Those are just some of the issues that we bring up in the councils and the caucuses. But Democrats Abroad also has several advocacy teams, and they take their own, we're a 100% volunteer organization. They take their own time and money to fly into the United States and talk to our legislators about issues that directly affect us, negatively impact us. For example, tax issues and banking issues. I know a story of a member in Spain who had her entire bank account sum sent to her in the mail in a check. She was a customer for 9 years, and they said her bank was too small to handle the US reporting requirements. That impacts us. We can't live in countries where we earn money, where we can't have bank accounts. So we bring up those kind of issues. So that's why being a member of Democrats is so important, because we need your stories, your unique situations to be able to take back to our colleagues in the DNC, to be able to take back to their legislators who can in return affect change. When we talk with these legislators, we also talk about healthcare. That's something that affects all Americans, even Americans abroad. We care about that. A lot of us, we're spread out over 190 countries. We can share the best practices of how the taxes that we pay into our home countries are used to provide affordable health care for everyone, affordable university experiences or trade school educations. We don't mind paying taxes. As Americans abroad, we're required by law to file taxes. We file our taxes. We want to know that our taxes are going to help the good of everyone. Democrats Abroad is, I've been reminded when I was preparing for my brief time on this call, being a member of Democrats Abroad, it's a way to take collective action and make your voice heard much more than as a single politically active US citizen. And if Democrats Abroad continues to grow in Africa and is well organized, and we continue to turn out the vote, we're 9 million Americans abroad, 7 million that we estimate are eligible to vote. If we turn out that vote, we're speaking for thousands of voters. We lend weight to specific concerns that affect where we live, and also in the home states and cities where our loved ones lived. And you know, this year we have to be strong and noisy. We're carrying this forward. You know, we need to bring out the vote in 2020. We have to show up again in 2022. And I know that a group of leaders from Democrats Abroad in Africa can speak directly to the Democratic administration and can be heard. Angela, that's all I wanted to say today. I don't know if I have time for any questions, but I just wanted to amplify the importance of being a part of Democrats Abroad. We're the largest organization of Americans outside of the United States that work on issues that are unique to us. And our matters issue because our issues matter because our voices matter. And the way that we get heard is through our vote. So go to Vote From Abroad. We're recommending that if you're in one of those melon states, do the emergency write-in ballot now. Our voter team is on the call to help you do that. Vote, vote, vote.
Yes, thank you, Adrienne. I just wanted to kind of reinforce what we've been talking about as far as voting. I was on another live stream today and I made this little presentation, but I just wanted to, it's really quick. The main thing is that you need to make a plan on how you're going to return your ballot. There are a lot of states that will allow you to return your ballot by electronic means, fax and email. But you should make sure that you have the ability to return it electronically. You know, make sure that you have a scanner or a scanner program on your phone, or you have access to a fax for those states. I happen to vote in Florida. I can return my ballot by fax, and I did it for the primary that was just a couple weeks ago, and it almost was flawless, except for I didn't have a cable to connect my printer, scanner, fax device to my phone. So I had to run out and get a cable. So it's a good thing to maybe just do a dry run of what you're gonna do. There are a number of states that only allow you to do postal mail. A lot of the really important ones to vote: Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, all these states. So you need to make a plan. Some people, they're recommending that you use the federal write-in assistance ballot and send it back first. And when your ballot actually, because it might take 2 months for your ballot to get there, our voter assistance people can help you with that. So with that, I wanted to let me just put up our second poll very quickly. And now we're going to head into our Q&A with your questions. John, we have a lot of questions in the Q&A box. But I can go ahead and just read some of them. Robin, would you like to read the first question from the Q&A?
Sure. I actually have done a brief summary. So, and it's good, just right on time that the questions just went up, because somebody did ask for the ambassadors, what would they think are some of the biggest issues, U.S. Policy issues to Africa that have a biggest impact on Africa, and what advice would they give our presidential candidate? They said the president, oh no, she said that's right, our presidential candidate to address these issues. So maybe when they come back on, we can ask them to respond to that. The other one, a question was, they can see in this administration that that the current President Trump has let go of some of the diplomats and some of the DCMs, and what's happening in the cadre of the lifelong diplomats, and so how do we rebuild that? And so I think that that's a question and a concern they'd like to hear from some of our panelists.
Well, let's give the panelists a chance to answer before you keep going on.
Okay.
So that because they probably won't be able to remember all the things. So let's start at the beginning. What was the first question?
Well, the first one was kind of tied to the poll. So do we want to?
People are still voting on the poll.
We can do that in a minute. So the second one was in regards to the deterioration of the lifelong diplomats, and seeing that there's a lot of spaces that have not been filled, the value of diplomacy and that work deteriorating. What is it going to take to rebuild that? What's been the cost and the impact of that not being tended to?
Ambassador Blaney, did you have or was it?
Yes, let me take a whack at that since it's been my life. The diplomatic service of the United States is very frankly the weakest I've ever seen right now, at a time when we can't afford it and the world can't afford it. There's confusion, as somebody said, there's massive vacancies. I won't go into all of them because I've run out of time. And simply, no administration cannot afford to have eyes and ears on the ground and people to try to explain and to listen about what America should and should not be doing. So that's a failure of this administration. But there is a systemic element in this too that I'll get to later. It's not just this administration. There needs to be these positions need to be filled and filled rapidly, obviously, and I would expect the Biden administration will do so with alacrity. So that's point number one. Insofar as who they're filled by goes, that's also a very serious matter indeed. And it's not just a Republican problem; it's a bipartisan problem, if I can say that. You need to have qualified people, whether they're career people or non-career people. You need to really take a very careful look at their background before you put them in positions to represent the United States. Sometimes that happens. Often it doesn't. It's a matter of patrimony, political patrimony, for instance. And that might have been okay in the 20th century, is certainly not okay with the complex problems we face in the 21st. You've got to have people with the expertise, the experience, the judgment, the proven leadership ability to represent the United States and to report back, which is a very big part of our job, what's going on out there accurately, fairly, and so that it can be digested into a policy making process that comes up with the right sort of paths forward on each individual issue. So yes, the diplomatic service is in very sad shape. There's a lot of untruths about it. The compensation is not competitive for people who are in that position. But mainly, we've got to get these jobs filled. We've got to get those ears on the ground. We've got to do that listening. We've got to have a very interactive foreign policy, and we just don't right now. So I would expect the Biden administration to take care of these problems.
Thank you. We'll go to Ambassador Bush and then to Ambassador Page.
Yeah, I would say a couple of things on this point. First of all, let me say that the career diplomats who I worked with were some of the most patriotic Americans I've ever met. During my time as ambassadors, people were in my organization were so focused on doing their jobs, there was never much conversation at all about politics. It was really about serving America first. And that was one of the most important takeaways I had from the experience. Secondly, I've continued to mentor some second and third term Foreign Service officers, many of whom have really thought about leaving. And what I've told them is that we actually need them more than ever. And then in the context of all of these vacancies and the great needs that we have, it's highly likely that some of them may find themselves in opportunities to be promoted more quickly than they may have been able to in the past, because there's just so many unfilled positions. And many of these people are developing the skill base that they will be able to employ as they move through their careers. And thirdly, I have no doubt that Vice President Biden and his core senior diplomatic people will find talent. There is talent in the private sector as well as in the career people. And that I believe in the Biden administration, there will be a lot of interest, especially internationally, in restoring our appropriate roles as a country that leads, that's a country that's a beacon of hope. And I think they'll be able to fill the positions as needed.
Okay, great. Ambassador
Yeah, I would just very briefly add that there are currently hearings going on and many that have been scheduled about diversity and hiring in the State Department and USAID. But I would add, I have a sort of unique platform because I came in as a civil servant in the Office of the Legal Advisor, which is very prestigious, et cetera, et cetera. Served on the recruitment committee for L. And then I also moved into the Foreign Service and served with USAID overseas as a regional legal advisor, then back to the State Department. And then I left for a little while. And when I came back, I came in as a political appointee. So I have actually had the opportunity to serve in all of these different areas. That's really like a career that you almost could not duplicate. I mean, if somebody had asked me what I wanted, I would not have said this would have been my path. That said, I think it's really important that, and has come out in some of these panels with Congress, is the need to be a little bit more clever. I mean, part of the problem is also, even if there weren't so many systemic problems within the State Department, young people are not staying in jobs for 20 years. And that is a problem of getting people to stay. They get, they want to have families, and it's difficult when you are moving every 2 to 3 years. These days, almost everyone has, if they have a partner, their partner has some sort of a career or a profession that they also want to be able to do. And that's difficult when you're moving around, and not every partner wants to work in the embassy as the CLO or the GSO or whatever other available position is. In South Africa, for example, where Dr. Stremlaw is, spouses, partners cannot even work on the local economy due to the rules that are in place there. So these are other issues that impact on long-term stability within the Foreign Service. But there are ways to mitigate some of these issues, and I'm glad that Congress is taking this up. And some of those are civil servants who actually would like the opportunity to work overseas and to fill in some of these vacancies. So some of it is the hard to fill positions that continues. They've already been vetted. They already have security clearances. Yes, they have to go through medical clearance and make sure that they are still suitable for the particular position. But we could open up some of the areas where people in the past came in through mid-level career transfers from other agencies. So I think there are some possibilities to look at, as well as keeping up the Wrangell, Pickering, and other fellowships, which also need to have a bit of a new sort of thought about them, because people are often labeled as if they had special treatment, when the reality is getting into the Pickering and Wrangell fellowships are actually harder than getting into the normal foreign service in terms of the percentages who are admitted. So anyway, these are things that are definitely being looked at, and I think that they need to continue, and I'm quite certain that they will continue, because that is what Biden and the nominees have spoken about very often. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Page. I believe that Ambassador Odembo had a comment and a question for the audience about the future of Africa. No?
He put, yes, Ambassador Odembo, we'd love to, because this is exactly one of the questions that came up in terms of what might be some of the most pertinent and timely issues in Africa that the U.S. Could or should be putting their focus on. And I know you've put in here on the chat talking about it all comes about having a plan and a thought about America's plan in the U.S. And this whole panel, this discussion today was about American voters, the power of our vote in and for Africa. So I think that this point that you were raising is just exactly what we wanted to discuss. What should we be leveraging our American votes on in regards to Africa's future? You can unmute yourself. Are you able to unmute, Ambassador? There you go. The floor is yours. Okay. I wonder if he's having some technical difficulties still.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Let's go on. Actually, while we're waiting just a second, I will show you the results of the poll. 36 people voted. It appears that the African Growth and Opportunity Act is very important to a lot of people. So that's, and also USAID funding, ranked second. Okay, so let's take another question from the audience. This is a really good question. How do we reach more U.S. citizens living outside in Africa, outside that are not DA members, and to make sure that they know that they can vote and request their ballots? There was also a question too that was I saw pop up on my phone about how do we make contact with dual citizens too? That's a big group of people that we basically don't have so much contact with. What do we do?
If I may just take that question, I would only say that, grassroots engagement is important, not just in the US, but globally. And right now, given the COVID-19 restrictions, we are not able to do many of the in-person activities that we used to do. And so now the internet is the tool that we have, and which is a lot easier to reach people abroad, because today I can sit in front of my house and engage with Elizabeth in Morocco or Angela in a different part of the world. So we have to use those tools that we have today to engage with our friends, our neighbors, our American citizens in other countries, to engage them, encourage them, and support them in really understanding how do you request a ballot? Have you voted? Have you even registered to vote? And if you haven't done it, where would you need to do that so that you can vote and exercise your that right that you have? We also need to be able to have the conversation where we are around, because today race is a very important part of the election that we're having today. And so having those conversations with our colleagues, our friends, and really leveraging those networks, those connections that we have across the globe, to make sure that we host more Zoom meetings such as these, more conference calls, using WhatsApp, using other tools that we have, including Telegram, where it's just a lot easier today to have political engagement with people, American citizens, whether they live in Senegal or South Africa, to make sure that they vote and they vote, particularly this election, because we cannot afford to not have people vote this time around. For a long time, people have come to think that their vote just don't matter. Oh, I'm just one person, so if I don't vote, it's not a big deal, right? And we've seen many, many times where one person not voting adds up. And the more people adds up, the more people do not vote, we will not have those policies that we need to have to address racial segregation, to have gender pay equity, to have other policies that we all want to see today, not tomorrow or in 10 years.
Yes.
Angela,
true.
if I could just jump in and piggyback on Mamadou, what you said is this is right. In these pandemic times, the internet is a blessing. And one thing about Democrats Abroad is we have always worked to connect Americans across the globe. We are at the forefront in the Democratic Party of using digital platforms to make sure that we are a community and amplify our voices. And when you, just as you said, some people think that their vote doesn't matter, Mamadou, but we know that it does. And we know the Democrats abroad, we've made the difference in races, from governor races in Minnesota to congressional races in New York to municipal offices in the state of Florida. We know that we have a president now who lost the popular vote. And in certain states, if we would have turned out in the ways that we could have, that our votes make a difference. So, Ambassador Page said that, and I agree with her wholeheartedly. As a Black woman from America, I'm standing on the shoulders of the people that came before us. And, you know, in the year that we lost John Lewis, you know, the world saw his head get fractured. You know, we don't have the right to sit it out. We don't have the right to say our voices don't matter. So how do we reach Americans abroad? One thing we know from Americans being abroad, that there's always somebody in your host country that knows another American, that when they meet you, they can say, oh, do you know that person? Or, you know, I know somebody else. So we need to turn that around and go to them and say, what American do you know that you haven't introduced me to? Or can you be my eyes and ears when you are out, or whatever, you hear an American voice when you're doing your grocery shopping, you know, or whatever it is that you're doing. Ask your husband, ask your neighbors, ask your friends. Americans, we're everywhere. We're all across Africa. We know we're in 190 countries. We're all across Africa. Tonight is a huge step of bringing the community together in Africa. And I congratulate everyone on this call that participated, because you recognize the importance of that. So how do we reach Americans abroad in Africa that aren't already members of Democrats Abroad? We just need to be Americans and ask where they are. Say, here I am, where you at? You know, we're never shy. We're the ones that are easy to talk to. So just ask your neighbor. They know someone, or they know someone who knows someone. Everyone's got a colleague. So this is the time where we have to actively seek out people.
Angela, Adrian, if I just may add one more thing, which is, there's also another demographic, which is there are many Africans who are naturalized citizens. And many of them have gone back to live in their own home countries. And you'll be surprised, many of them actually believe that I cannot vote in Senegal, I will have to come back to the US to vote. And, this is a very large number of citizens who think, well, if I'm a US citizen and I live in Morocco, naturalized, I have to go back to the US and vote, which is not true. And this is the group of people that I'm used to working with, because here in the US, we've seen many of them that are afraid to be involved, because while they may be US citizens, some of their relatives may be undocumented. And so they tend to think that, well, the more I get involved, the more they see me, the more they know who I am, and they'll discover that my relatives are undocumented, and they get deported. So I would rather not do anything. And those are the kind of people that we need to engage a lot more, inform them and educate them on the voting process. How do you request a ballot if you're not here? How do you do all of these things so that they can vote in South Africa or Senegal or wherever they are to help elect Joe Biden in 2020?
Can I just add one word? Radio. in Africa.
Yeah.
There isn't that much television, you know, and many people listen to radio. So what I did in the case of Liberia was contact some of my friends there and just give them the language, nonpartisan. Here's how you vote. If you're a dual citizen, in particular, you know, you can still vote. All the points that you need to make, but make them by radio, because the number of people who can monitor this type of media is limited. The number of people that will hear the message through radio is much greater. Africa is still very much a radio-dominated area.
That is really good advice. Yeah.
You know what, Angela, not to hop in, he's right, but you know what, it reminded me of when you did that tax seminar for the Global Black Caucus Get Out the Vote team, when you organized that voting seminar, and a lot of Americans abroad are afraid to vote because they may not have filed taxes, they may not be current, and they think if they vote, you know, somehow they'll get nabbed by the IRS. Can you speak a little bit about that as well? Do you remember what we learned?
Well, I didn't exactly learn it, but I've always known this. Your federal taxes and your state voting are not connected. They can't, there's no system connection between voting and taxes. So you don't have to fear voting if you haven't paid your taxes or you're 1 or 2 years behind in filing or something like this. You can just go ahead and vote. You don't have to worry. They're not going to get you. Our government isn't that sophisticated. Sorry to say that it's not, where we have all the states connected with the federal IRS, and that's, yeah, it's never.
Another misnomer is that even though we are required to file taxes, that doesn't mean we have to pay. You know, you have to be above a certain income level. So maybe you didn't file last year or the year before, you can get caught up. But you know, we have our passports. We're not giving up our passports, right? We have the requirement to file taxes. We're going to do that. That means we have the right and the duty to vote. And dual citizens, naturalized citizens, yeah, as Mamadou said, you can vote. You don't have to vote in person. Vote from abroad. We have lived overseas for years. Sometimes we get so excited about elections that we will go because we want to work the polls or we want to work somebody's campaign. But I have lived and died on the absentee ballot, you know, since 2004. So yes, vote. There's no excuse not to vote.
Go ahead, Ambassador Page.
Yes, so I just wanted to add one quick thing. I really wanted to second what Ambassador Blaney said. Radio is absolutely critical. A lot of the work that I did in Sudan and South Sudan, was part of programming as well, but we gave out crank wind-up radios, and that was absolutely key to encouraging people. Obviously, we're talking now about, you know, local residents, but Americans live in far-flung areas in all of these countries. You guys are mostly in the capital cities, but that's not the case of everybody. I saw that somebody's in Kakamega, somebody is, you know, whatever. So radio is an absolutely fundamental tool in much of Africa. And I would encourage those of you who have access to journalists to have them make a plug, go and make a plug yourself. Usually this is free. They would love to have an American on their local radio show. And it's also a way for you to augment the voices of Democrats abroad or whatever other entity you might be engaged in. So I would encourage that. The last thing, I just want to say that I think we need to be a little bit careful about tax issues, but simply to say that, you know, voting is a right and exercise it. I saw that there was a question in the Q&A about the safety of our votes based on rhetoric going on right now. And I would just say that when you're talking to people who are afraid that their votes are not going to be counted, make sure that your votes get there early. And I see that there have been, lots of chats about whether it can be faxed, and obviously different state laws are different, but try your best. I know that even a lot of us who are voting by mail from wherever we are located are still going to deliver our ballots to the local polling place to actually put them in their own ballot container. That can be done, and if you can, use whatever it is in your ability to make sure that those who are not registered to vote, or those who are afraid about getting their vote back in on time, that they have all of the resources. And I see them posted, so that's fantastic. Thanks.
Great. Robin, would you like to ask the next question? Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah, sure. One of the question that has come up is in terms of, I think what is being touted as perhaps a hypocrisy from people here on the continent of Africa, and they're looking back at the United States. So in terms of treaties and international institutions, what would you say about America's involvement, if you will, in terms of the ICC, different treaties in regards to women, environmental issues? How does the United States get back, well, it's the role of the conversation, in terms of its moral position to be able to speak to some of these countries, in Africa specifically? So I think that is one of the things. So somebody's asking about that, institutions, America's involvement in some of these institutions and treaties in regards to women and so forth. How do we get back in there and take back, have a position to be able to speak to these countries that we're speaking in, and we're not following a lot of these ourselves?
Maybe I can kick off here and just say that we're not joining new. I think the question is about institutions we're not presently a member of, and we're not joining institutions, we're leaving institutions under this administration. So the first thing we have to do is stop the hemorrhaging of growing isolationism and instead losing our leadership in the world. That's the first issue. In terms of which things we join and which we don't, in terms of new institutions or new policies, that raises really a deeper issue, which is how do you make policy, and what's the methodology for doing that? And what I would say is that before you make a decision on any of these things, you have to go back to an expertise-led creation of policy alternatives, what we used to call in the business options, from which leaders of the government can choose and then execute the policy, having weighed all the pros and cons of each one. And this may seem simple stuff, and obvious, but look at where we are today. We make policy by tweet. We have really an ill-informed foreign policy that does not do this type of careful expertise inputted way of formulating foreign policy on any issue, on joining any institution. So this is a dangerous way to proceed in this complex world. So, we want a structured methodology, a structured system that did work for formulating a coherent foreign policy. We don't have it. And the only way that you can get it, that I know of, is to vote for the Democratic Party.
Yes, that is the best way. Right now, you're right. We are being governed by tweet, and it is a disaster for domestic and international policy. We have some. Oh, go ahead, Ambassador Page.
Sorry to just add one last thing. I am a new professor this year at the Ford School of Public Policy at University of Michigan, as well as at Michigan Law. And one of the things that I know that Democrats Abroad does, but I would recommend as individuals that you also try your hand at op-eds, try your hand at a letter to the editor. It doesn't have to be, quote unquote, the most famous newspaper. Get those voices out. And so, as Ambassador Blaney said, if you are interested in commenting about, you know, the current isolationism or whatever your thought might be, rejoining the Human Rights Council, et cetera, make your voices heard in any way you can. And that is often through, you know, again, through a letter to the editor, through an op-ed. And there are many ways to do it that don't take a lot of energy and time. And it will reach a wide number of people. One of the things that I'm doing at the Ford School is actually teaching foreign policy. So all the things that, you know, are sort of lacking right now. And these are going to be some people who will be engaged in our own foreign policy in various ways and in the foreign policy development of other countries. And that's what I think we need to do. So make your voices heard, don't be shy. And a lot of times things will get published. Thanks.
Angela, if I could just make a quick pitch to everyone on this call to send in a 2-minute or less selfie video talking about why you're going to vote, why it's important to vote, whether you're voting domestically or as us American citizens abroad. And you can send it to Black Caucus at democratsabroad.org, and we'll get it out through all of our social media channels, because one thing that we know from research is that when you make a personal appeal to your network, that they're more likely to vote. So we want to hear your stories, where you're voting from and why you're going to vote.
Yes, that is always very helpful. People like to hear from other people who are like them. We have a question from Katie Solon. Here's her question. Could you comment on the situation of refugees and displaced in Africa, those fleeing violence, also climate refugees / displaced? What more could the U.S. do to help? Anyone? Or is that a bad question? Go ahead, Ambassador Page.
Sorry, I hope I'm not overstepping. I don't want to be speaking all the time, but I guess I feel that void when there's silence, and that's bad. But I would just simply say that, you know, we have talked a lot around the world about the refugee crises, and we're often focused on refugees fleeing their countries and going to Europe. But in Africa, most refugees are not going to Europe. They are going within the continent of Africa. And so one thing that we have to try to help is to make sure that funding does not stop for UNHCR and IOM, other agencies that are doing this work. And as we have seen already with the current administration pulling out of WHO at the time of a pandemic, there's no guarantee. Everything is on the table. So again, write your congressmen and women. I mean, do whatever you can. You're still a citizen, and it doesn't matter whether you are based overseas. These are important matters to you. Make your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Will Bacher wanted to make a comment about that question. Will?
Nope. Sorry if I accidentally hit raise hand. But I definitely don't want to take time away from
All
our
right.
game.
Well, then anyway, is there anyone else who'd like to comment about displaced persons before I go on? All right. We have a bunch of questions that we can try to get through. Who would you like to see serve as Secretary of State in a Biden administration? What are the most critical qualities for choosing a secretary?
Well, you know, I would just say that I know many of the, shall I say, likely suspects out there, and I believe that there is a very qualified bench of candidates to not only take the position of Secretary of State, but to take some of the very important other senior positions in the State Department. My understanding is that there's a lot of discussion about this right now, and it will probably be one of the first named cabinet level positions. But I really do believe that what we're going to focus on is having professionals. And if you look at this administration and the number of true professionals in the diplomatic corps, they're few and far between at the senior level. So I think we're okay with our bench, and I think that a great candidate with experience, with sensitivities, with broad knowledge on the different continents of the world, appreciation of some of the issues that are very specific to different parts of our geography around the world. That's the type of person we need, a person who has independent bona fides, respected by our key allies around the world, key organizations that are important to us. It takes someone who's been around, and I'm pleased that feel confident that we've got many people who will qualify if called.
Would anyone else like to comment on this? Who might be the next Secretary of State? Okay, I will move on. Here's a question from Marnie Delaney. How much pressure should we be putting on, hopefully, the new Biden administration to quickly address our absence in international treaties issues like violence against women, the environment, and where can we make the most difference? Anyone?
I think we already addressed that.
Okay.
We talked about that earlier.
All right, it just
if
wasn't
I'm
marked
not
off the
mistaken.
list. Not a problem. Sorry that I'm, yeah. Let's see.
I think I've summarized and we've done them all in the Q&A.
Okay. All right. Well, then it looks like we don't have any other questions.
There was one question that I might address, which has to do with corruption. And, you know, let's be frank. There's corruption everywhere to various degrees, but it is a major problem in many governments in Africa. It's a major problem in many governments outside of Africa. And it goes back to what I said earlier about the leadership role of the United States historically. We are a rule of law country. We project an honest level playing field. We have laws not against bribery. And really, it's very, very difficult for developing countries anywhere in the world to make progress with corrupt governments. It's also very difficult to attract assistance to give to corrupt governments when you know that it won't be used wisely. So what I would say is that the recent Trump administration relaxation of dealing with bribes and illicit payments has to be rolled back. We have to stand by our American values of honesty in business, of a level playing field, and we have to set the example as we have historically in this whole area of economic dealings. Otherwise, development and hope for the future and lifting up societies all over the world will be damaged.
Yes. We are definitely, or we were a country of the rule of law. Now, I'm not so sure. Hopefully, we can vote in a new administration and return to our lawfulness instead of being run by criminals and their friends. Next, we're going to hear from Elizabeth Myers in Morocco. Elizabeth?
Yes, thank you very much, Angela. On behalf of the 5 country committees that put this together, I'm just going to say a little bit about what we're all doing. Obviously, we all have the same mission, which is basically to reach out to Americans abroad and dual nationals abroad. That's one of the big things I realized when I got to Morocco, that there are so many who've come back, but how to find them. So we're working on basically getting out the vote. we're working on inspiring and motivating people to vote and making sure that Americans in Africa, and especially in our countries, know about all the resources that are available, how to request their ballot, how to return their ballot, how to make sure they get it in on time, helping them through the process itself. So we're doing on a very local level some of the same things, obviously, that Democrats abroad are doing on the global level. And then each country is doing its own thing as well. So here in Morocco, we're a new committee. We have about 8 to 10 members, and I'm still recruiting, as I think all of us are, for our country committees. We had our first event in July, which was a training on vote from abroad. We had our second event on Tuesday this week, where we invited the candidates from the 4th Congressional District in Massachusetts to participate in a candidate talk. And the reason we chose that district was it has the very first ever Moroccan-American woman running for Congress. And that was a great event. Some of the other country committees are doing things like in Rwanda, they worked a ballot assistance event to help with the global primary, and they've been involved also in a letter writing campaign with Swing Left, where they have already had 250 letters written so far, with another 750 pledged to be written by October. South Africa is creating community with positive engagement of Americans there. And Egypt has also a new committee that's very enthusiastic and just starting out. So I'm sure they could use help if anyone wants to help. And I'll end noting that as others have said on this call, we're all volunteers, and we're all volunteers who with a strong belief in the importance of democracy and the importance of being able to exercise your right to vote wherever you are in the world as an American citizen. So please reach out to the committees, anyone who believes like us that we have to, this is one of the most important elections in our lifetime, maybe in our history. And we're here to help. We're here to work with you. We're here to welcome you onto our committees. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We're just about at the end of our time. So I would like to thank our guest on behalf of Democrats Abroad. Thank you, Ambassador Blaney, Ambassador Bush, Ambassador Odembo, Ambassador Page, and Mamadou Samba. And thank everyone who joined us today. Please make sure that you've requested your ballot and that you've asked 1 or 2 of your friends. If they've done so, the best way to get people to vote is to have a friend ask you, have you requested your ballot? And if not, you can go to votefromabroad.org. Our time is, request your ballot as soon as possible. Time is running out. If you have any questions about registering or getting registered, we'll be standing by for another few moments to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, you can ask our voter support team at the end. Once again, thanks to all of our guests, and thanks to everyone who took the time to join our discussion. And hopefully we'll have another Africa-focused event very soon. And thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
I'm going to end the live stream now.
Okay.
Okay, if there's anybody who wants help, please just ring out, and I will actually allow you to talk so you don't have to type it. So just indicate that you want help, and I will allow you to speak to the voter help.
I just want to say, wow, I feel so inspired. And everyone on this call who invited the ambassadors to speak, thank you so much. Absolutely every guest was amazing. And this was an evening well spent, time well spent.
Yes.
I agree. Mamadou Samba had to leave a little early, but wanted me to give his thanks. He really was appreciative of the invitation, being the only non-ambassador. And and that he had to, sorry, he had to leave early. But I thought he added an awful lot.
Yes.
He
Yes, this was
absolutely
very
did.
good.
And I want to give kudos to you
Definitely.
guys on the motherland. I was one of those African Americans, my first trip to Africa. I got off the plane on my hands and knees, kissing the ground, you know, like I'm at the motherland. I just want to thank you guys for building up Democrats abroad in your host countries. Well, some of you have been there. I think somebody said 25 years. Thanks so much for doing this. I mean, now more than any other time, but I'm really inspired by that. And Will, I want to thank you for project managing them and helping them to be full-fledged country committees, and Angela for all the work that you did to make this happen. You make it look easy. You know,
True.
we need to do like a day behind the scenes because I know it's not easy.
You
but
just
this
see
was
me
like
going, ah, ah, ah. No, the whole
this was
time,
so
like, oh my
good.
God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, you guys, what they said about radio, that is a really good idea. You need to find some
Yeah, I love
radio
it.
stations, find out if it costs anything to make a, you know, to have an ad, and then let's see what we can do to get some ads going.
Yep, there's a global XCOM call tomorrow. It's on the agenda.
Right, awesome.
Yay.
Yeah,
And I
find out
know
how
even
much it
for being,
cost, or if it cost anything, and then we can run some spots.
but
Because
even there, like yeah, Angela, like you said, even beyond that, like Ambassador Page said, you guys make great panelists for a radio show. You know, they're looking for people to talk, and you know, the election is on everybody's agenda around the world. So that's a great reach out. But yeah, Angela, Will, I'm so glad you guys are going to discuss this in the XCOM. And I can say this from being in Sweden, in my little town in Sweden, in 2008, the newspapers and radio were coming to me. You know, it's a story. It's a story.
let me just answer this person. There isn't a group in Tanzania, I don't think. Will?
But I'm right next to them. I can take them. I have people.
Okay, well, contact Robin, but if you're interested in starting, you
Yes.
know, a group, then this is your opportunity to.
Yes. She's right next door. I'm actually knocking on her door right now.
Your time is now.
Yes, the time is now.
She's right there. Hi, who is it? Who is it?
It was Cassandra.
Cassandra.
Oh, Cassandra.
Ford. No,
Yeah,
Ford
wait,
University. Cassandra Ford. Yeah, but Cassandra. Get in touch with Robin. Robin, can you type your contact info in the chat?
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, she put hers in there also.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, a GW grad.
Yeah, see, we can pick up some new people.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, you know what? And Katie mentioned this before, phone banking.
Oh, but if she gets in the WhatsApp group, I'm sorry, I'm speaking out loud. If she gets also in that WhatsApp group.
Go on, Robin, talk.
I'm like
Magna
kind of late, but here is the link for the WhatsApp group if anybody would care to join. At this point, I'm yeah.
Robin, her email is in there too. Did you see it? Ford C
Well,
at
at the
GW.
end, if you look down at the chat, there's 3 little dots, and if you hover over it, it says more. One of those is save the chat. So just save the whole chat. I was going to save it just to see. I didn't see when it went by where everybody was. I kind of wanted to see where that was.
Oh, yeah.
Does it save it in real time, or does it save the whole chat when it's over?
It saves the whole chat.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's very convenient. Yeah, so is there anybody waiting on the line for any voter help? There was somebody, I think it was Patrick, that mentioned something about taxes. Did I see that right, Patrick? Because I just talked to Carmelan Polis, our tax team chief, today on a video. So we talked about all the things FATCA and all that this morning. So if you look on the Democrats Abroad website, or not website, the Facebook page under videos, it should be there, my talk with her. It just happened today.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions about, are we fighting for a residence-based taxation? And I know you covered all of that in your talk with Carmelan.
Yeah, of course we're fighting for residency-based taxation.
And Will, I saw you. I had the Facebook Live on my phone. I saw you masterfully answering all those questions.
I do what Angela tells me to do, and she said I was in charge of hosting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm.
Answering questions on
Everybody
both
did a
sides.
great job. I appreciate all your work. But I think we should do this, something like this again. I know that that's probably pushing it. But there were a lot of people that were interested in this event.
Yes.
But they didn't turn up. So we have to do something. We have to do it again. I don't know. Maybe with Ambassador Battle, he said he'd like to participate in something. Maybe we could have him and another person or something do it like at the end of next month, or, you know, at the end of, or in the middle, the end of September, maybe.
Well, I shared with you the message from the assistant of Ambassador Chombori Kwal, and she would be willing to do something with us. She just needs more warning. And, you know, this was tight this time, but if she's got a month, you know, to work it into her schedule, she'll be a huge draw.
Yeah.
But also, how can we leverage this recording to make sure that all the people that, you know, signed up and couldn't come or didn't know about it, because this is great content. And you're right. You have a month to get these other people on board, but don't discount the value of this recorded content and how that can be amplified. Don't you think?
I think they're planning to clip some of the stuff out of it. I had to get permission from everybody to do all that stuff. So,
but not on YouTube, or maybe on YouTube as well. Well, hey, I have it. Well,
I don't know what I'm not in charge of that. I just,
well, we know we've got content that can be shared.
Yes, we definitely have shareable content. So I will tell the person, I can't remember what that guy's name was. There was some guy that's now I don't know, in charge of webinars, or I don't know what his job was, but he's the one that sent me all the questions, like make sure they say yes to everything, you know, all these things so that we can cut up the content. So I will ask him what he's going to do, how he's going to cut it up, but I don't know. So yeah, let's pick a date while we're all sitting here for the next.
I think
Angela, when are you available to host?
You guys don't need me. You're all great without me.
Bowie, you run the Global Black Caucus. We need you.
You don't need me. I actually, towards the end of next month, I don't really have any plans, honestly.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't have.
Katie just put her hand up in the chat. I think we still have people. Or is that?
I know there's still people on there. For some reason,
and I'm having wine. I know.
Just have to,
it's like 9 o'clock here, and I'm having wine. But
okay, Katie.
Oh, I'm gonna have some.
Wait,
but Katie wanted to speak. Can she speak?
Hold on, I will let you speak.
I think I want to mention also that we previously had some discussion with the Biden fundraiser group that we had worked with previously, their Africa Working Group, and that there's likely that there would be a follow-up fundraiser connected to Democrats Abroad with them, like we had done with Susan Rice. And there's a good chance that that would also be towards the end of September.
Oh my God, it's a shame that it didn't come out that the Biden campaign has an Africa Working Group. Did that come out tonight?
No,
I don't think so.
No, only one of the people was an ambassador for Biden or whatever. Katie, you have the ability to speak. No one is holding you down.
Well, I just wanted to say hello, Robin, Liz, Tracy, Kimberly, and Elizabeth. My name is Katie, and I am one of the founders of Democrats Abroad Austria, like 15, 16 years ago. And so it really touches my heart to think about the work that you are doing now to get things going. And I want to applaud you and appreciate you. And I've just joined the WhatsApp group, so I will be following with great pleasure. I also want to say that I'm one of the Democrats Abroad DNC members that was elected recently in our region, in your region. So I look forward to getting to know you in that capacity as well. But bravo, bravo, bravo for all you've already done and you are doing and you will do to get us across the line November 3rd. Thank you. And goodbye from Arizona.
Katie, how's your mom?
Go
She's
on.
93, and we got a bunch of COVID in Arizona, and it's going to be 113 today. Does that help you get the picture?
Oh my
But
God.
she's got plenty of good days and lots of days that are not so good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be here for that.
Stay inside and stay inside under the air conditioning. Don't go anywhere. Oh my God. Yeah. Temperatures over
Well,
100
what does
degrees are.
Donne Coulisse mean?
It means behind the scenes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is anybody anybody from Senegal here who can tell me how it's probably different in African French?
In
Is it
German,
different in Morocco?
it's hinter der Kulissen. Yeah.
Yeah, and coulisse is the part of the armor that goes over your thigh, or sometimes just your thighs. So it's delightfully French idiom.
I lived 4 years in Brussels.
Under your slip. Ooh, okay.
I lived 4 years in Brussels. I should know that. I guess in Sweden, back scene and like behind the scenes back.
Okay, well, Germanic languages.
Why don't we organize a follow-up meeting next week?
Yeah.
Cool.
And have our
debrief
and
Sure.
plan for the future. And then we can also check with the Biden, with that working group in between, because I think they were meeting this week or on the, now I'm getting confused with our date that we had earlier from the 3rd, but we can check with them and see if there's progress on that. Because that's something that we could do together with them, or some link up.
Yeah.
Or not match dates.
I would, yeah, I'm sure we could meet up with them. But we should try it again, maybe the week of the 23rd. I don't want to go too far after the ballots are delivered, because there's going to be hard dates starting to show up in October about whether you can get registered or get your ballot. So for, various states. So that way we can do a little bit more publicity. Yeah, yesterday I spent a lot of time going to various African Facebook groups, expat groups, putting out information. And maybe this time, and I was able to run a few ads, but you guys, it'll give you a time to get the ad capability, where you can run ads. Because in some places I just couldn't run ads. It just wasn't possible. But I think in Kenya, South Africa, and I want to say Tunisia, I was able to do it. Oh.
Can I add something as I'm walking out the door? The deadlines that you just mentioned, Angela, more and more states are pushing their deadlines back closer and closer to election day, that people can still request the ballot. So our work is, it won't end in the beginning of October. We will push in November, because there's got to be at least 20 states, Michelle, you're an expert on this, or more, that have their request deadlines very close to election day. And they also have, people have the capability or the authorization to send their stuff by email, always to receive the blank ballot by email, and then sometimes to vote by email. So we can be helping voters November 1st, November 2nd in some states.
That is true, but we don't want to wait that long.
No, we want to push early to everybody, but we will get people that don't pay attention till the end, and we'll still try to help them.
Yes.
But a big problem in all of this is you might be able to get the ballot by email and request by email, but there still are about 20 states where you have to mail back the voted ballot. And we're working on that already, but those are the states, especially among them, the battlegrounds, that we're going after big time now, so that they have a plan, as Angela said, when their ballot comes. But before that, they do other things like vote the FWAB.
We'll be like the store open on New Year's, on Christmas Eve. It's like, yeah, you don't want to be out there on Christmas Eve doing your shopping, but we know there's always those people that come in. So we're going to be there.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, I just think that like the second to last week of September is probably a good week. That way we don't have to all feel pressed to like hurry up and, like we've got to help you right at this moment, or we're all going to die or something.
Can I get all you leaders on the call now to commit to do a vote from abroad video, or get out the vote video? And you can say, I'm Robert Emerson, I'm in Kenya, and I vote, I'm Kimberly Roberts, I'm Tracy, I'm Liz. I'm Elizabeth. Get those because then we can spread them around. I don't know, because Angela's doing targeted advertising, it seems like, I don't know. But if we can get those people on the ground in these countries in Africa to do the video, what's the minimum? 2 minutes is the maximum, I think. A 30-second minute video is good.
If you wanted to go on Instagram, it has to be 60 seconds or less. If you wanted to go on Facebook or something, it can be longer. You could just go on and on, but more than 3 minutes is probably too much. I put a link with some instructions on how to make a video, what you have to do and things you can say and where to send it to if you want to make one.
Shareable content for people for people living online. I'm one of those people that live. Angela lives online. But yeah, we want shareable content because it's also, not just for the Global Black Caucus, but for the Women's Caucus. We're intersectional. It can go to through all of our channels. And of course, we're pushing vote from abroad, but the main thing is that people vote. So it can be addressing the people in the States, of course, Americans abroad, but video from you saying, hey, I'm Kimberly Roberts, I'm in Egypt, we're getting up going, where do you live in Africa? Let's vote from abroad. Our votes matter, our voices count. So if we can get you to do those videos, that would be great. Because, and actually, as Angela and Katie said, we're going up to the finish line. So have you got your ballot back? Or do you need help filling out your ballot? Or, it could be all kinds of things. Maybe it's not too late for you. Check your state, It doesn't have to be one message, it's rolling.
I just hope I live until November 3rd. I don't feel like I'm going to die, but it's just, there's so much to do. I'm determined to
keep you alive. Me and Michael are going to keep you alive.
If you talk about check your state, it's also a check your county by county also. Because even in Texas, Abbott is saying, no mail-in, but then I got one of my counties just sent a message saying Harris County said we will take emails. So I think
Robin, that's a great example. And for example, in your video, you can say exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
I vote in Texas, I get mixed messages. You had to be vigilant.
Right.
You have to be proactive, exactly what you just said. And you can say, who's, because one of the things we're doing research with the Global Black Caucus Get Out the Vote team, who are your candidates, that you need to be paying attention to on, some in Florida, they vote for judges. Some people vote for sheriffs, you vote for different things. So it's all kinds of messages, and you can do more than one video. Doesn't have to be just one video.
Can I follow up on a question that was asked about the participation of embassies? Obviously the embassies, they're not supposed to be partisan. Can they actually disseminate information that Democrats Abroad is available to help on this? I actually didn't even approach Morocco, the US Embassy here in Morocco, because I just assumed that this is, just the title is Democrats Abroad, that they wouldn't be able to.
They don't usually.
Yeah, it's so rare as to be extraordinary. It's probably worth reaching out once.
Okay.
But also the other thing is to make sure that in making that request, you don't burn any bridges in terms of just your relationship with them, in terms of good information about when's the last day that the Diplo pouch goes out, so that they're getting accurate information. So yeah, it's definitely shouldn't be high on your list of things to do. But if you're just sort of chatting with somebody at the embassy and you say, by the way, do you have a list of American organizations? Would you put Democrats Abroad on it? That's probably the way to go about it. But making a formal request puts them in a difficult spot. Right. So do that sort of cautiously is what I would say.
I mean, we do a lot of voter assistance with our embassy here in Copenhagen, but we always do it as nonpartisan. So so they know us and they love us, but we're there nonpartisan basis.
In a best case scenario, they might come back and say, sorry, Adrian, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, because I know the American Women in Stockholm, the American Women's Club, the American Chamber of Commerce, AmCham Sweden, and the American Club of Sweden are doing, in conjunction with the embassy, a voter registration something. So that's another way to go. And it doesn't have to be Democrats Abroad, because Vote from Abroad is nonpartisan. So
No, I mean, we help out there all the time. So it's not, they invite us all the time. So.
The best case scenario I've ever heard of was somebody called up somebody from the public affairs section who they had a personal connection to. And they said, so, you know, we know you can't promote Democrats abroad. And they said, oh my God, yes, we can actually. We want to stage a debate. So as part of our outreach to local, you know, to the locals, we would be happy to stage a debate between you and the Republicans. And so that group had to go out and find Republicans somewhere that were living in the country. They only found crazy ones, as you might imagine, but that made the debate
Are there
easy.
any other type?
well, you know, that happened with me, and that happened with me in Stockholm. AmCham sponsored something about, this was in 2016 before the election, and I was a Democrat, and they had this other guy who was a Republican, and the first thing he said was like, I'm not a Trump Republican. It was like he backed away from that as fast, as seriously as he could. And in 2008, or no, 2012, it was still me in some article, and he was supporting, who was the guy in 2012? Romney. God.
Oh, yeah.
So he like, yeah. So he was all about Romney and the Republicans then. And so he had to back away from it, but you're right, Will, you're absolutely right. It's not nonpartisan if you have somebody representing both parties. Then it's like totally American and you can do. So that's the option. Go, you can find somebody like, they may be crazy. This guy was sane, but it doesn't matter if the other person's sane. It would be to our advantage if they're not.
Okay, we had at least 4,000, 4.3 thousand viewers, people that viewed, and about 418 people that stayed on for a while.
Fabulous.
That's not bad for you guys' first event, don't you think? Pat yourselves on the back. That's not bad.
That's brilliant.
Yes. Yes, very exciting.
All your hard work paid off.
Did you say those again, Angela? I'm doing my EMEA report.
Hold on, let me find it again. I just moved off of everything.
It was 4,300 on.
Yeah, 4,300 like people that viewed for at least a minute, and then about 400 that were there for the long haul.
Can I ask, how many of you guys get on the EMEA calls? I'm so bad that I don't, but have you guys been on one of the EMEA calls that Will runs? If not, get on one as soon as you can. I know Michelle was a regional vice chair. I don't know if you still are.
We got one next Wednesday. I'll invite him to that.
Yeah, they're very informative.
Wow, time flies.
Sorry, Angela, was the 4,300 on Facebook or on Zoom?
Yeah, on Facebook.
On Facebook, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not
Those
bad.
are the people that saw the uncut version.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, you know, especially we don't have very many events targeted towards Africa, to be honest.
We should add everybody to the leadership list, right?
Which leadership list? You mean
He's typing the EMEA leadership list, then they would get invitations to all of our
you
calls
mean
and everything.
the Mobilize? Is that what
Not
you
the
mean?
Mobilize one, the Google group.
Oh yeah, of course. You guys should be added in. Can't believe there are so many people.
Will, do they get
still
access to the
hanging on.
wiki?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody gets access to the wiki, but
cool.
It's not that hard to get that. But
yeah, that's brilliant.
It's a treasure trove of information, you know, with all kinds of like toolkits for.
And
how
most
to
of the
do an
stuff on
event.
the wiki is you don't even need the password, so.
Just got to know it exists and how to get there.
Yeah, there's a lot. We shared it out with our volunteers in the past week as well.
I took the social media training yesterday and saw all of that on the wiki, and it's very robust, very helpful.
How was the training? I mean,
it was good. It was geared towards, there was a wide range of people's understanding about social media. You had people on there that, you know, didn't know how to post on a Facebook page, to people that, you know, wanted to know about what type of content to put on there. And so it had a wide range. And so we did an amazing job of speaking to both interests and in the middle and step by step, and what you could do and what you shouldn't do. And it was very comprehensive. Yeah.
And I think he's thinking about doing an advanced, I mean, I suggested
Yes.
the team would benefit from an advance. I didn't read his email that came back, but it sounded positive.
Yes. Yeah, he put out an email today that he's going to do an advanced one. So
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I asked for one of those when at the regional meeting. I was like, they're going to do a basic one. I'm like, I don't need a basic class. Like, I use social media.
You could lead the basic class.
I don't live on social media. It is an extension of my life. So
yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah.
How many's taking phone banking? Katie leads the phone banking.
I haven't done it yet. I just joined like what, 5 days ago.
If you could take phone banking training, that's another.
What are you waiting for? 5 days
I
is
know,
long
right?
enough for you to have
Right?
taken the class.
Right? Right? Hey, and by the way, I did want to, 2 ideas. You guys have probably already thought of this, so forgive me if you have. Expat magazines and nomad groups, digital nomad groups are very in touch with each other. And so you're going to find a lot of the dual citizens you were speaking of, as well as expats that, you know, are just all over the place. So digital nomads and expat magazines, that was one thing. And then the second thing was, if you do a media list search for your particular area, you can often find, like, usually by page 3 or 4 of your Google search, you'll find out somebody has put together a media list, all the newspapers, all the TV shows, all the radio outlets, and the links to all of those for context. So I just did it for Cairo, and ready to go.
You know what? I think there's a wiki page or someplace you could add your information about that, or you can double check. Isn't it, Will, on the, I know that our comms team supposedly has an exhaustive, well, but they constantly ask for us to let them know.
Right.
what's
They
going
moved
on.
everything onto Airtable, so it isn't like a form you can fill out yourself anymore, but that's kind of nice. So if you just send stuff to comms@democratsabroad.org, they do all the processing on their side.
Perfect. No, I was just thinking from the reaching out to them as it was recommended in here. I think it was Ambassador Page.
Yes.
Yes, about reaching out to them and like, hey, I'm available to talk about voting or questions about that, as it's so timely on everybody's mind in the whole world.
Do we have a media training page as well, or not that you need it, but
I need the crash course of everything.
We've got the one that talks about the pivot and how to speak to the press. Yeah, that is a saved webinar that was run by Nicholas out of Hong Kong earlier this year. And you're right. You know what? I need to go back through everything that I've posted to EMEA and just like pluck out so nobody has to go back and find it themselves. I'll put that on my to-do list for next week.
Brilliant.
which is like 15,000 miles long, your to-do list.
Oh, perfect.
I'll put it in the first 1 mile and maybe it'll get done.
Well, I'm glad that this went well. I'm glad that we were able to reach out to so many people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask Michelle a question? How many voter registration questions or help questions did you guys ask?
Oh, good question.
Answer.
Actually, there weren't any.
Really?
What do you mean there weren't any? There were, nobody.
Somebody asked about the census.
Oh, okay. That's not our deal, but all right.
There were about 10 on Facebook, I think.
Oh, were there?
Yeah, I saw some on Facebook that Will was
Who was
handling.
answering them?
Will.
Ah.
But there was also somebody who was posting as Democrats Abroad, just as Democrats Abroad. So
Oh, I thought that was, okay, I thought you were doing both of those.
No. And it wasn't a problem. I'd like to know next time if they've got it covered.
That might have been me. There was something, I just put out like a VFA, I think.
Did you do did you yell at somebody in all caps at some point?
I was gonna say I saw the all caps.
No, I didn't yell at anyone.
It was like you.
There's the third one.
No, it could have been somebody manning the page or something like that. Yeah, I don't typically yell at.
And there was the typical couple of trolls that were like Trump 2020 and you know, but not a lot, but a couple of those.
That's why we keep the Zoom link up behind a passcode, unfortunately.
Yeah, they always show up, and it's, you know, basically you can just hide their comments and delete them. Like you don't even have to respond to them because there's no point to it because they just want to stir up trouble.
And I saw a few people who were like, "Oh, I wish I was American. I wish I could vote. Please vote, Americans." You know, a lot of please.
The whole world wants us to vote correctly.
Yes.
This is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My chapter did a sort of in-person, like get out the vote table downtown in Wiesbaden, and there were a number of Germans that were like, yeah, I hope you guys can vote, and I wish I could vote, and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
for
get
sure.
it here too.
But okay, I guess we should have another meeting next week then to keep the ball rolling. But please do find out about radio, and then we really that we can just move forward, because I think that is the way.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think there was, when I was in Africa, I don't think that there was any TV.
One thing I learned
really
from one of my Melissa was a delegate, but it wasn't her, it was somebody that said, like, if in your hometown, the national public radio where you live, you're a story to them.
Yes, yes.
They would be very interested to know that you vote in Indiana and you're in Zimbabwe, and
I don't want anyone in my hometown knowing where I am.
I write a
Angela,
weekly.
not
I
you,
write.
then.
I write
Angela,
a week.
you're so. Go. I'm sorry, Kimberly.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say I write a weekly column in the newspaper back home, just talking about life in Egypt. Yeah.
Oh my God, great! So you already have a platform to talk about voting.
Yeah, yeah.
Share that with us, because we can amplify that on social media as well.
Okay, will do.
And I just received a request yesterday via a journalist friend from two national online media here in Morocco to do interviews in French. So I don't know what they want interviews about, but when they contact me, I'm going to suggest that the American election is probably one of the most important issues on the planet right now.
Yes.
Well, and you know what? You can, Elizabeth, you can easily segue that with the centennial of the women's right to vote, you know, and
right.
So, you know, it's a juicy story.
So that media training, I've done a lot of media, believe me. I'm a former editor-in-chief of an online magazine, so which I was a founding editor-in-chief of, and done tons of interviews. But I've never had any official journalism training nor media training. So if there's something that you can share about that, I'd be happy to look at that.
I was just thinking that you were putting your hand up to do a media training from a layperson's perspective. Someone who hasn't been trained, and this is, you know, the pitfalls that you experienced or what you wish you knew.
Yeah, well, the main pitfall is not being prepared. Because you don't know what you're going to be hit with questions. Unlike the format here, where we gave the questions ahead of time to the ambassadors, and they were, you know, pretty softball questions in the first place. I've been hit with some pretty difficult questions from time to time, and it's how well you're prepared for the whole context you're in is how well you're going to deal with those.
Well, one thing I know about Democrats, about like David, why can't I think of David's last name, Michelle? But he's always on Danish TV. Why can't I think of it? Please tell me. I'm gonna. Thank you. David Miller is always in the, like my chair in Stockholm is, he's fluent. He in Swedish. He's always on Swedish TV whenever, you know, we're topical. So we do have a lot of wealth. That's one thing I love about Democrats Abroad. We can do anything. We have members that have all kinds of experience. Oh, and by the way, while I have you guys on the call, if you know any musicians, professional musicians that may be willing to do a fundraiser, that maybe we can do some type of live concert, if they're willing to volunteer, because I know musicians need to be paid. This is a hard time for them, but maybe if they think that this is the one thing that, like, what can I do to help people vote? This is the one thing they can do. You know, maybe poetry slam, like, let's just think creatively. We have so much talent. Like, what can we do to fundraise? Because these ads that Angela's talking about placing, you know, we need money to fund those. You guys know that. And that can be their contribution, that they give 30 minutes of their time and we raise X amount of money to fund ads to reach out to Americans abroad.
Being a musician myself, in the Western classical world for many years before I came here, where I really only get to do it online now. Personally, I'm reluctant to ask a professional musician because so many I know are struggling big time. They're not eligible for unemployment because of their contract, the nature of their contract work. They haven't made enough money to do it. It's a terrible situation. And personally, I cannot.
I understand. My parents met as music majors in Howard University in the 50s. And I know my mother made her whole career music education and, you know, classically trained. I get that. But they are, the reason that I say that is because I've had a African-American soprano from Arkansas who's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, like Kamala Harris, who's like, I want to do a concert to, you know, I want to contribute directly to the campaign. And my biggest struggle is getting her to do it for Democrats abroad, and trying to convince her that her biggest contribution is a woman from Arkansas living in Vienna, is to get out the vote overseas. So just in case you come across those people who are like, what can I do? She's like, oh my God, Kamala, like, you know, just the night, like, Kamala, you know, what can I do? So if you come across those people, but I totally feel what you're saying, Elizabeth, that it's a hard ask that to make.
Yeah.
But if you get people to come to you to say, what can I do? You can say, okay, are you willing to do that? Because she had an orchestra and a conductor that she thought would be on board, and they were like, oh, you got to pay my musicians. She's like, well, I'll do it for free. So I'm trying to build up maybe a concert with just not her, but others. So it could be like kind of like a Live Aid, or, you know what I mean, type of
So
thing.
are you interested then also in African musicians? Because I know there's a ton here in Morocco. I don't know if they do it for free, but.
Well, no, and that's the thing. Don't approach anybody. But if somebody comes to you, you can be like, oh yeah, because she came to me, I didn't even think of asking her. She came to me and say, I want to do a concert, a recital, and benefit the Biden-Harris campaign. So my biggest pivot is trying to get her to do it for Democrats abroad. So if you come across somebody like that, that's like, I've got talent that I want to give, you know, donate, you know, it could be 15 minutes, one song, you know, but
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I grew up parents and daughters of musicians. I know they deserve to get paid.
One of the ideas that I had regarding publicity that we were going to have for the next event for Africa, and you just brought up, Adrian, about doing a concert or something for a fundraiser. It's very timely right now with the NBA, the baseball, MLB, sports stars that are protesting and walking out. And what came to mind was my time living in Canada. Masai Ujiri, the former general manager for the Toronto Raptors, he was passionately involved with all things Africa. And I think given the timeliness of that he would be a great draw to come and speak about the American influence. We bring some of the NBA stars to come and speak as well. Who knows?
Well, you know,
Just
the
a thought,
Toronto
just a thought.
Raptors are doing, they're working with DA Canada.
Okay, great.
They have an already like an in with them.
Yeah, so I mean, but Masai Ujiri, the general manager, I know he created special basketball camps in Canada and not Canada, Africa, and schools and training camps for them. And he did a lot of recruiting for the Raptors here, as well as promoting other players from Africa to the NBA.
Yeah, if you look at Democrats Abroad Canada's Instagram feed, they have a Raptor video, or a video that the Raptors did. But that's a great idea. And maybe he can do a video, you know, 30-second video, but anything else that he's willing to do. But absolutely, we're just like brainstorming here. Because we know, that's the other thing great about Democrats Abroad. We know somebody who knows somebody, or we know somebody personally, or we went to college with somebody, or something. And it's amazing what people, because this is the thing, this election is so crucial that people, just like that opera singer came to me, internationally acclaimed, and said, you know, what can I do? You know, so instead of, like Elizabeth Myers said, you know, it's a hard ask to ask a musician who right now hasn't been able to perform and get paid. And she's an independent soprano, so she's like, you know, I haven't worked, you know, the opera houses aren't open. But if they come to you with and say, what can I do? You can say, okay, what are you willing to do? You know, the easy ask is a video. The longer ask, that's 2 minutes. The longer ask is a concert, you know, whatever. Brainstorm with them and see what they're willing to do. But that's great that, you know, what you just said, because he's got an audience, he's got a platform, and if he's willing to leverage it, because a lot of people are afraid, like sometimes I'm afraid to publicly comment on a Donald Trump tweet because I'm thinking they're going to come for me. It feels
They're
like
coming for you whether you talk or not. They're coming for you because they know who you are.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter. You can't be afraid of stuff like this. When they come, they come. And but they're not, they have to come a long way to get to us. Not that it's impossible. But
I know, but Angela, you're like one of the
stop.
ones like, I don't ever have to go back to the States. I'm like, I gotta go back to the States. Daddy's
I
94,
have to
mommy's
go back to
90.
the States too, but I mean, I guess if the United States turns into Nazi Germany, I guess I won't be going there.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, we're like what, two steps away from turning into that, where your neighbor's gonna rat you out.
A long time ago,
two goose steps. Two goose
steps away. I already a long time ago made a plan with my family of how they should escape out of the United States.
Yes.
Dang.
This is not a joke. This is very serious. And these people are hateful and cruel, and they want to hurt other people, and they think it's fun. Because they're always talking about how liberals are so delicate. Well, you know what? They're way more delicate than we are. Because if
it's all fear. It's all fear.
Yeah, they can't stand it when people are different. Not even different ideas,
Yeah.
Not just that you look different, but that you might think something other than the bullshit they think. Really.
Oh my God, Angela, you know what I just realized? Okay, I don't know how many of you guys, you can go back and find this again in Democrats Abroad Evergreen content on the Facebook page, but Angela organizes amazing, Black Lives Matter.
Oh my God, this
vigil.
Yeah, it didn't make any difference. People they keep killing people.
Well, what I was gonna say is like,
oh my goodness, right?
Doing those.
Yes.
It's like we could do another one, and unfortunately, we could do one every week because somebody's dying, getting murdered every week.
Yeah.
So
And
maybe we can.
But to Angela's point, I don't think it's the Black lives to figure out and to fix. It's on us that representing the system to figure it out and fix it, to acknowledge, to find out what we're missing and to make it happen and fix it ourselves. Because until you own it, you're not going to do anything about it. And I'm sad to say that's.
Can I just ask Tracy to say hi? You've been here the whole time.
True that, right? My fellow Hoosier.
You know what? And Kim, I think I said Rob, and I'm sorry about that. But listen, I'm new. I'm a new volunteer to Democrats Abroad, and really, when I joined, it was really to just kind of figure out what is happening, what the process is. And I have to say, Angela and all of the other, organizers, you guys did an amazing job. It really was fantastic. Adrian, where exactly are you located?
I'm in Halmstad, Halmstad. It's on the west coast of Sweden. It's in between Gothenburg and Malmö. Malmö is
where all the murders take place in all those books by oh God, what is that author? The Swedish author
Henrik.
Yeah. You
Henrik,
know what I mean.
something
but
with
Malmö
an M.
is where all those. He's a policeman there, and there's tons of murders and stuff that take place.
That's true.
All about
I'm living in the land of the dark criminal novel that the whole world, and but it's close to. So I'm West Coast, sandy beaches. They call it the best coast. Well, the people from the West Coast call it the best coast. There is a little rivalry between Stockholm is the capital. It's on the East Coast. Gothenburg is the second largest city in the West Coast. Malmö is the third largest city. They're south of us. And my husband's a Swedish military officer, so it's a big military town. And we've lived in Stockholm because of his job, and also in England because of his job. And he's lived in Gotland on the island. And we're what's his name? Oh, the famous Swedish director that did all those dark films, the older guy. He's dead now. Ingrid Bergman. Bergman. His name was something Bergman. Come on, anybody that studied film knows him. But anyway, I'm on the west coast of Sweden, and I'm from DC, went to Howard University, before Camilla. That's how old I am. And very, as you can see, excited about our next vice president.
So you were saying that you've got an opera singer who wants to perform.
Her name is Kristen Lewis.
For an AKA function? Is it for an
Well,
AKA function?
she's an AKA, and she's the same sorority as Camilla. And when as soon as the announcements came out, I don't know what time it was here in Europe, 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I know I went to bed like dancing, and I woke up and I was like, is it a dream? I asked I was like, was it true? Is she the nominee? And as soon as I got on Facebook, that opera singer who's also in the same sorority was like, Kamala, what can I do? I want to give to the Biden campaign. And my first thing is like, give to us. You're American abroad. This is how we're going to reach those people. It's that one weird thing about Democrats abroad. We get it because we're on this call. We get it, but a lot of people don't get that if you want to affect American politics, we have to vote from abroad.
Yeah, I was going to say, listen, I'm a member of AKA too.
There you go, Divine Nine.
Our big push is to get out the vote. So,
listen,
if she's interested in doing something, please let me know. Please.
Well, listen. Well, here's the thing. Let's be in touch. I'll give her her email information. She's in Austria. And because I'm a member of Divine Nine as well, Sigma Gamma Rho, like my mother and my sister, and we're nonpartisan organizations. So she cannot do a Camilla Harris fundraiser in the name of AKA. And
not in the name of, she can do it, but not in the name of AKA.
Exactly. Yeah. But you can encourage her and say, look, sister, you're in Austria, I'm in South Africa. Let's get all the AKAs in Austria activated. Get all the AKAs in South Africa activated. And one of the things, because I'm contacting all the Divine Nine. Yeah, I'm getting all the Divine Nine activated, and when Zeta Phi Beta came back to me, and they're like, because I'll ask all of them, who are you working with your voter outreach? What are you doing? And the Zeta said, I can't remember the name of the organization, but it's some voting organization that Michelle Obama, Tom Hanks, and a long litany of A-listers put together. And I'm on their email list now. One of the newsletters they sent said that AKAs, they were like, shout out to the AKAs. They're already halfway to their goal for their voter registration outreach. So I said, can we join Democrats abroad to get the overseas vote? Because you got sorors everywhere, whether they're in the military.
We've got members. And
shut up, Angela.
I have to go. God. And when I go, everything goes.
I know, we have to go, but we can
wrap it up, okay?
But this was a great brainstorming. Thank you so much, Angela.
You know what?
Angela did so much work behind the scenes to get this writing the scripts and sending out the confirmations and sending out the Zoom emails. And
yes,
thank you, Angela.
I know, I'm crazy.
Don't stay up to 3 o'clock in the morning tonight. She was up to 3 o'clock in the morning.
I stay on this call. I've been up last night. I was up till 3. The night before I was up till 4:30. So
girl,
watching the convention.
That concealer's working. You got no circles under your eyes.
I slept some. I slept. But
okay, well, do we have a date yet
for the next evening? Or the next event, because
for the next meeting or the next event. Because if you want me to invite Ambassador Chimbori Coel, I should do that soon, really soon.
Is this today is Thursday?
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do it either on the 22nd or the 24th, the Wednesday. No. Cheers. I don't drink, but I do drink.
You had something with me in Greece where were we? Tokyo.
Good night, everybody.
When we were in Tokyo, I had
my wife Anita. She recognized your voice on the call, Adrienne.
Did she? My pampered chef girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell her hello.
Your wife sells Pampered Chef?
No.
We just love it.
Oh, okay. I was like, Wow.
I want everything in my kitchen to be Pampered Chef.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, like either I'm not so sure that Thursday is the best day, to be honest.
You mean generally Thursdays?
Yeah. Yeah.
For an event.
Yeah, I'm just not so sure that it makes a good day.
What in your opinion, what's the best day? You do so many webinars. What's the best day you think?
You know,
of the week?
Probably Tuesday.
Elizabeth, does that sound good to you? Tuesdays?
Yeah, Tuesday in general, but which one? The 22nd or the
22nd?
29th?
22nd, not the 29th.
22nd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the advantage of the 22nd is that we can say, did you get your ballot? And if they didn't, we can have people on hand to help out.
Yeah, love that.
The other thing, don't we have to check it with Global to see if they have other webinars going on, or does
and there might be a call-a-thon or something that we could even play off of to boost our numbers, and boost our attention. So I'll look into that. And
that's a good idea.
Hold on, I can see the.
Elizabeth, I don't know. What time is it for you? It's 21:40 for me.
Oh, I don't do double digits.
Oh, it's 9:40 for me. I know. I got
8:40. That's 20:40.
No, I was just saying, just to encourage you to attend the.
Oh, there's something already on this. It's one of those women's caucus, Women's to Win.
Okay.
But the 23rd is open.
yeah, that 22nd one will be a big one. We don't want to conflict with that because
No.
they've got like 8 people on it, candidates.
No. Oh yeah, no, those, yeah, no. I was just going to say, Elizabeth, if you have, depending on your schedule, can join the global executive committee meetings as well, just so you can hear and talk, and so you know, like the planning and what's going on, just to get you in there.
I have it on my calendar, but I've only been once, and it was just so boring. Sorry, I'm sure it's really exciting. That one time was just bad for me, I guess.
Well, it's
I
not
try
like,
to keep it exciting.
Well, okay.
I've been to some really exciting ones, I just have to say. But the only reason I say that is because now, since we're in crunch time, you can kind of see it, and you know, Julia like the XCOM goes through like the whole planning and what we've got coming up and what they're working on, and you just never know what's going to trigger you in your mind to be like, oh, okay, yeah, and you know, whatever.
Yeah. What is it? It's tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got to ask the international secretary, so secretary@democratsabroad.org, in order to attend, and he'll send you a.
And the first part of the meeting is open to all of us, and then they go into executive session. Yeah. So it's not a huge commitment of your time, but like if you've got an hour where you can just hear it. Because for me, I get pumped up when I hear about what we're planning, what we're doing, you know, what we've achieved. And there's some serious business that we get to be privy to, like how we spend our money as a volunteer organization, you know, depending on donations. Like, okay, how are we going to spend the money on this? Should we do that? And we don't necessarily get to speak unless you're bringing, like, for example, if I did get this internationally acclaimed opera singer and what other musicians that want to do a joint fundraiser for Biden, I would have to go through the executive committee to say, is there something that we can do? Because they have to get in touch with the Biden-Harris campaign to figure all that, you know, because it's FEC, is that right? You know, there's all these regulations that you have to go through. So you kind of just get familiar with how the organization is run, because it's just like politics, is very local, but then we've got this governing body that's voted in that has to make the hard decisions. So for example, quick example, last time I was on the call, Steve Nardi, who's the chair of Democrats Abroad Canada, he was asking for money to do these wrapping things, advertisements on buses, because in Canada, they're
like almost 700,000 Americans.
Exactly, and more importantly than that, and to the point, Angela, exactly, Michigan voters, which is like a what? Key state.
Yeah.
So they're like, you know, we can run this and, you know, get a lot of Michigan voters. And it's like, well, do we want to give the money to that? Or, you know, do we want to do Facebook ads? Do we want to do a lot of stuff? And it's just interesting to hear about all that stuff, because it's like, wow, okay, you know, that's true. You can't just go willy-nilly saying, yeah, this is a good idea.
You need a strategy.
Yeah. So you can just like listen and hear, because that's going to help you on the local level. Angela
Great.
wants to go. Bye.
I do because I haven't
I'll try and
I
listen.
haven't eaten dinner yet, and I'm sure that my husband is probably starving to death. And
I know. I
waiting for
love
me
you
to-
guys. Thank you, Angela. Thanks for letting me be a part of this, Will and Angela. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
All right.
see you next week at the meeting. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Recording.